So we're Polygon Research. We've been in this space for over 5 years. We've had a product on the market for the last 2.5 years that does HMDA analytics. So we know this space really well. And we, along with our apps that we sell subscriptions to, we've got a robust data layer where we really model this data. And we work with the data across the entire team this week to start to brainstorm some new ideas. And in fact, we started the week focused on data quality pretty narrowly, like some of the other teams have. But we developed what we think is a fantastic idea as we went through the week, and we're going to announce a product launch today before our presentation is over. We wanted to talk a little bit more about the problem statement before we get into that. So when we're here in Snowflake, in our data layer, and we're working with the data, we see some issues that even come through to the public LAR. And so we started thinking about that, and we learned a great deal about this working closely with the HMDA operations team this week, that there are great efforts that are happening. There are syntactical edits, validity edits, and sure enough, the LAR isn't getting through if they fail those edits. But then there are also quality edits, and that's really where we put our focus. And the quality edits are important, and they give feedback to lenders to correct. But this puts a highlight on the question of accountability. And this is really a question of whose accountability or who's responsible for making the data accurate. Of course, that falls on the lender. CFPB is giving feedback here, but the lender is the one who knows who not only knows the loan, who originated the loan or took the application and ran it through the process and has the actual source of truth for the data. So our team asked itself, why then are we still seeing quality problems coming through? And let's elaborate on that a little bit. We in HMDA Vision, and this is our software as a service app that we have on the market for HMDA analytics, we have to make 3 painful decisions as we produce the analytics. We have to override some of the values because we know that they're wrong. And I'm just showing you a brief glimpse at those here. We won't go into them. They have to do with CLTV, intro rate, introductory rate period, and interest rate, where we really see some dirty data. And really, we have to make some guesses about where the decimal place was intended to be. So that's kind of what we do before we launch our app. But even then, when we launch our app, and this is HMDA Vision, it's based on the fantastic ClickSense platform. We're a Click partner. It's organized in a series of sheets, each with a different theme. Each sheet has a series of charts. We have the entire LAR in here, and we have 5 years of data in here. And one regret we have this week is that we didn't get to work with the census experts. We've got ACS 5-year data in this app integrated with census, with the HMDA data, so we can look at questions of coverage or penetration of applications or loans against the population. So that's the sort of thing we can do in HMDA Vision. But let's illustrate a problem that we see here. So we've made, CFPB's done their edits. We've made those 3 difficult overrides we're sort of forced to make right now with the state of the data. But then what about, are there other problems that get through? And we actually realize that there are. So let's look at a quick demonstration of that. If we go to our filters, and this is where we have all of the fields in the HMDA data accessible to us in a single filter context. So if we come here and we say, let's go to denial reason 1, and let's look at DTI, debt income ratio. And then we go to, let's see, what do we want to do? So that's actually denial reason. Then we want to go to the debt to income ratio field itself. Let's say it's a really good number. It's less than 30%. We come back to our HMDA overview sheet. Whoops, I went into the wrong button there. Come back to our HMDA overview sheet. Now we're on origination, so everything went blank, but let's go to denials. And I just want to point out the upper left-hand corner that we actually see denials coming through with denial reason, debt to income ratio, but we've got a really good debt to income ratio. So that doesn't make sense. So this comes right back to the data quality challenge and issue and question, well, what can we do to improve this? And what we realized is that we have the opportunity to insert ourselves upstream before we come to March 1st, the March 1st deadline, before we come to the Q1 opportunity when people are really working on their data and getting it ready for submission. And we thought about the idea of continuous compliance through a platform with which lenders can interact and work with their LAR throughout the year continuously. So let's look at what that looks like. Switch over to our presentation tool, and then we get into presentation mode. All right, so we've got a couple infographics we're going to walk through. First of all, here is the name of the service we're launching today. Well, we're not launching it to the market because it's not built yet, but we're launching the intent to build it and the concept. And this is something we are going to go forward with and take to market. So it's called MyHMDA. We encourage you to go to myhmda.com, where we have some similar promotional information. That site is not processing LARs today, again, to be clear. But let's look at some of the details here. We elaborate a little bit on the problem statement initially, and let's look at that. So, we've talked about the data quality issue, but why does it exist? And we think that there is a game of telephone going on in the mortgage industry where mortgages or applications are taken, but then sometimes there are a number of state changes, so to speak, where data is transcribed, data entry happens, system to system integration, and you get farther and farther away from the source of truth. So our intent is to ingest data directly from the source of truth. So what we're going to take into our system for pre-processing, for LAR formation, and then for our quality engine, which we'll talk about in a moment, is anything, any kind of data, structured or unstructured. We'll certainly take a LAR extract from an LOS, but we'll also take a PDF that has the closing disclosure. We'll take it at any point in the value chain, but we really want to get as close to the source of truth as possible. And so then the quality engine consists of a rules engine, which will look a lot like what the CFPB has done. We'll augment that. We'll also add a machine learning engine, which will, among other things, do things like classification, which will sort of look at the columnar view of the data and say, does this data make sense with the patterns we see in this data? We'll also look at the row-wise data, as we've seen some examples of already. Does this value make sense with all the other values in the data set in this particular loan or application? But then we're also going to integrate our HMDA app into this ecosystem or into this platform, so that we'll not only give lenders a view into what they and their competitors have done in the past, backward looking for 5 years, but we'll also have a private version of that analytics app for their current activity, for, well, how's your LAR looking so far? And they'll be able to look at that and consult it and use it to provide a feedback loop throughout the year as they continue to form their LAR, and then lead up to what we envision to be a stress-free submission in Q1 leading up to the deadline. Let me keep going, walking through. We see a real opportunity to serve small lenders with this platform, with MyHMDA. The reality is that by far most of the lenders are small, depending on how you define it. We're looking at loan volume here. And we think we can infer in conversations we've had why we have some problems at this level. There are budget constraints, there are personnel constraints for putting intention to the LAR submission itself, the data quality problem more broadly. And here is where you have a lot of first-time LAR filers. So we think this is a group that needs help. To be clear, we want to serve this group as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation. We have some positioning here, and you'll have access to this afterwards, so we'll keep moving. This part of the infographic emphasizes what we talked about, the fact that we'll take data at the source of truth, or as close to it as possible, in any form, structured or unstructured. And here we dive a little bit into our analytics. And here we're talking about the output, which really at the end of the day is a LAR that is ready for submission. Let's keep looking at how that's going to work right now. So we've got a network diagram that is not a formal network diagram. You don't pick you don't pick your technology stack first, you pick your design first, but some of this is already in place. So we named some of the technologies, but let's see what this looks like. So we start with the customer, of course, who establishes a relationship with MyHMDA. And here's the interface to upload data. We envision data upload via web, API, cloud shares, just make it as easy as possible to get the data into the system. We'll zoom into the next step, which is then once the data is in, we've got a pre-processing step. I'm jumping around a little bit too much, my apologies. So on the left-hand side, we've got a pre-processing step. This is where we've got to do the LAR formation. We've got to do computer vision work on those documents, on the unstructured data. We've got to interact with it with something as straightforward as SQL queries or external code that will run against the data. But we'll work to get that into something that looks like a LAR. In fact, we'll get it into the exact accurate LAR format, which is sort of the syntactical challenge of what the CFPB's HMDA platform does. So we got it in shape, then that's only half the battle. That's not a trivial battle given the fact that we're taking multiple data forms, but it's half the battle. Then comes the real value add where we're going to be running the rules engine that I talked about, but then machine learning models, classification engines, other machine learning models to really add value and critically provide a feedback loop. We zoom out of the output of this engine is feedback back to the customer. And let's look back at what that looks like. So this is envisioned to be the customer portal. So the customer will upload their files. Yes.
We're right at the time that we want to transition into Q&A. So I would invite
to start. Thank you, Julie. I will wrap up and then we'll open it for Q&A. So in the portal is where you'll get a feedback loop. That's a critical part to emphasize. You'll have the chance throughout the year to take our feedback, and this is the question of accountability, to make decisions. We're not making decisions for the lenders. And in fact, at the end of the chain, you can see it's the customer who's still responsible for uploading to the CFPB, but we provide a robust feedback loop through reports, through our analytics, our visual analytics through HMDavision and the new app, My HMDavision. Let me just close our presentation by zooming over to our team. Again, a big thank you to our team, including Chris and Tammy. So with that, let's open it up to questions. And for questions, I'm going to stop sharing because we'll open it up to the entire team to answer questions.